Okay, I'm sorry for anyone coming in that is looking for some fancy music that is on Vin's computer. I don't have Go New York, Go New York, Go. Also, only here for about a half hour before Knicks Nets tip off at the Barclays Center on TNT. And as you can also see, I'm here by myself because I am not at the game. So anyone that might be living close by that's going to the game in a little bit, or if you're at a nearby bar and you see my face popping up on your phone, you can look for Vin or Ange there, along with some of their friends and family. So BK is going to be at the game. Look for a really tall. Vin's the tallest one, so look for the 6'4" guy. Probably has a yellow construction hat on. Definitely make fun of him for not matching in any way, shape, or form. So I got Brett Siegel coming on. He should be on in a little bit. We are going to be talking about the NBA rumors that have been happening, plus insane news today. Not only if you missed it, we spent about an hour and a half talking not only Knicks Nets over unders, which by the time some people see this will not have mattered anymore because the game will have already happened. But we also spent a crap ton of time talking about Terry Rozier to the Miami Heat for just Kyle Lowry and a protected first-round pick. It's Terry Rozier averaging 23, 6, and 4 on the season on some pretty good shooting splits. So that's going to be a little painful. I'm not going to lie. I think Scary Terry has something up his sleeve, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Fun fact, though, the last time Terry Rozier was in the postseason, shot 34% from the field and 23.5% from three. So maybe not. I would imagine Eric Spoelstra probably will make him be a little bit better than that. I gotta say. So yeah, we're gonna have Brett come on, and then also obviously the biggest news that's happened in the past like 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. Adrian Griffin fired from the Milwaukee Bucks head coaching position after just 43 games, a 30-13 record in 43 games, no less. I know. First, what's wild is that this dude was like the handpicked coach by Giannis. And apparently Giannis seems like the dude that's also had him kicked out. And he's the best player on the team, so it makes sense he has that power. But it's just so crazy, man, that this dude happened. David Blatt had almost the same exact thing happen to him, but David Blatt was a different scenario. He was hired for a team that had the number 1 overall pick and was planning to rebuild. And then LeBron James just comes over as a free agent, and David Blatt gets fired midway through the season with like a 30, similar to a 30-13 record. And then Ty Lue takes over. They win the title that year, coming back 3-1 the whole 9. Something tells me that if Doc Rivers becomes the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, they're not going to come back and win the title this year. And no shot. Can the Bucks get Kenny Atkinson from the Warriors? Would they promote someone internally? That seems unlikely. Could Terry Stotts come back, coach Dame again after he walked out or preseason from a little tough scuffle he had, not like a fight or anything, but like a little disagreement he had with Adrian Griffin? Opportunities are endless. Really, possibilities abound for Milwaukee. How is this all going to affect the Knicks, though? The Knicks at the time of recording, before the Nets game, 26-17, 5th place in the East. They're 4-point favorites tonight, even without Isaiah Hartenstein. So I'm not chalking it up as a win, but looking for it to be a win, knock on wood. Hopefully everything goes as planned and they don't quote unquote play with their food. 2 games up on Miami, who now have Terry Rozier. 1 game behind Cleveland, who somehow just wins every game. The Knicks and the Cavs are the only 2 teams that are 8-2 in their last 10 games in the East. And with no Garland and no Mobley, you really thought they would tail off a little bit. I still think they're going to tail off a little bit at some point. I don't know when. I'm hoping when they actually add Garland and Mobley back, that actually messes with them a little bit. Got a couple comments coming in. Jonathan saying, I don't know what he said, most likely will too because I wasn't looking. Ready to make a clean sweep of the Barclays. Yeah, we are, buddy. Yeah, we are. Like I said before, MSG the third. Anyone over on Instagram, thank you for watching. Make sure you slide over to YouTube. It's really hard for me to look at your comments, especially on my slow ass computer. I'm not going to lie. Come over to YouTube, like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the thumbs up. Tell me your comments. I saw someone, are we going to make a trade? That is what I'm getting Brett on here for. He should be on very, very shortly now because it just hit 7 p.m. and he told me 7 o'clock, and we got to get some 20 minutes in before this tip-off. So he's going to be the guy. He's a ClutchPoints insider. He used to work under Sports Illustrated for Fast Break on Fan Nation. And he started out for NBA Analysis Network after college. So this guy's been in the game for a little bit. Now that he's actually at ClutchPoints, he's like one of their official accredited insiders, NBA media credentialed insiders. So that's what we're looking for. And the Burger King Nets are scared, John says. Mr. Fleming, I agree with you. I do think the Burger King Nets are scared. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie, does he even want to play? Is he going to sit down? Is he going to take a seat in the middle of half court and sit out the rest of the game? Probably not. Does he want to get traded? Probably. I would want to get traded. And this is by far going to be the funniest thing. If Doc Rivers takes the job after the Bucks hired Doc Rivers like less than 2 months ago to be a consultant to help Adrian Griffin get more acclimated and better with the job. Like, if he takes this job, is that not backstabbing? I know he's not. That's just like, what did he consult him how to do worse? Did he consult him on how to make Giannis or Dame hate him? Did he tell Adrian Griffin to crap on Thanasis? And then Giannis was like, "Did you shit on my brother? You got to get out of here." We don't really know. Maybe Brett has all the answers that we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. I just want to know some real crazy tea. You know, I want to hear like Adrian Griffin maybe did some Ime Udoka stuff, and then he had to actually get canned before the season even ends. That's what I'm looking for. Probably not going to happen. This isn't a daytime soap opera, but sometimes sports are. Sometimes they are daytime soap operas. Joe G from Twitter, Bruce Brown makes the most sense. I don't know if you guys saw it. We actually posted it earlier. Boogie Cousins was on with Rachel Nichols on her podcast, and Rachel Nichols asked about Bruce Brown, the two teams that are most rumored to him, which I'm hoping Brett has this answer too. The Lakers and the Knicks. He's telling me he has technical difficulties, so it should be on momentarily. The Lakers and the Knicks. And then Cousins says in the video, man, he thinks Bruce Brown's a great fit under the Tibbs system, like hard-nosed guy, ready, diving for loose balls, yada, yada, yada. All things we know. And that sounds great and amazing, but Bruce Brown is not a secondary playmaker or scorer. He's kind of a point guard sometimes, but I mean, he's as much of a point guard as we would consider Deuce McBride a point guard, I feel like. So, like, just because you're a Tibbs guy, we have like 5 of those. We need variety in our players. It's not like Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, Tibbs guy. There needs to be more variety in who we are and who the Knicks are. And that's how they get farther in the playoffs, by actually adding a bunch of different guys. I think they should go for Daniel Gafford at this point. I mean, what's going to be really crazy is that tonight is a tryout for Jericho Sims. Are you able to fill in and make do and give me some 15 to 20 minutes of solid defensive anchor style play, get rebounds, don't give up loose balls? Or do we have to bring in another center if Hartenstein actually has to miss time? I'm hoping he doesn't have to miss time. Precious Achiuwa has had a couple of good games, more bad than good so far for the Knicks, but still a 10-game sample size, so it's pretty small. Hoping, but yeah, this is a real trial for them. So if it doesn't go, I think Daniel Gafford might be one of the targets instead of us just trying to get the Brogdons or Browns or Clarksons or anything. They might actually need another big. If you guys get a chance, check out our merch. Am I pointing the right way? BigNickEnergy.com. Check out all that stuff. We're having a sale up until midnight tonight. Anything newer, a lot of the things that read the word bullies across the center, you'll be able to see them. They're all 50% off. T-shirts, hoodies, the whole nine. BigNickEnergy.com. Make sure you add us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I have to get this on TikTok. James goes, why would the Knicks not meet the Hawks' rumored price of DeJounte Murray of a young rotation piece and 2 firsts? That is a great question. Why? I don't know. Because I would do it. Frankly, like if it's just, I mean, maybe they don't want to give up unprotected picks, and that's what the Hawks are looking for. They're like Grimes 48 and 2 unprotected. And then if they think it actually takes them out of the running for someone in the offseason, I really don't know. Maybe The one thing I would say about trading or not trading for DeJounte Murray, why I would understand why not to do it, is I don't think adding DeJounte Murray to this roster turns them into a title contender. It's really close. It's really close. I just still wouldn't pick them as like one of the last 4 or 6 teams in the East. And maybe they're still waiting. They think that with what they have currently, and just the grass is always greener on the other side. The hope that remains is that Embiid, Mitchell, I don't know, whatever in the offseason, Cat, Booker, like it's just like always like a what if. It's always a maybe. But would DeJounte Murray help you in that deal to get those guys with his contract and with him being a 27 going on 28-year-old player directly in his prime? Do teams think that he's like, I don't get it. How not only have the Knicks not offered 2 first-round picks or a first-round pick and a young guy at this point, if that's all they're asking for, how has no one offered the Hawks a young guy and a first-round pick at this point, or 2 first-round picks at this point? I don't get it. I know the Lakers can't. I know they only have 1 tradable first-round pick, this 2029, that everyone wants them to, they want to get rid of, that LeBron wants them to get rid of. That's for sure. But like, I would imagine there's a lot of teams that could use DeJounte Murray right now, and I'm very, very confused as to why they're not actually going on. Kareem, what up? Salute BKE, thank you. Let's see if I can scroll over to Instagram without my computer dying real quick. Anything else going over here? We got a fuck the Heat, always and forever. Is anyone getting traded? Peedle, that's the last, hopefully, like I said. Bruce Brown is Josh Hart. We don't need him. It's from George P _NYC. That is kind of where I'm at, dude. They have Josh Brown. They have Josh Brown. It is Josh Brown. It's the same person. They have Josh Hart. They have like Bruce Brown and Dante DiVincenzo are basically the same capability of the guy with the ball in their hands, bringing the ball up the court. They like he's better and taller than Deuce McBride, but it's just not too much, you know. Like I would get why adding him to the rotation. Like if you turn your 9th best player into your 6th best player and everyone below that moves down a peg, then it really helps out there a lot. DJ LD. DJ, what up, buddy? Long time no talk. Any centers out there we can scoop up? Clearly Sims is in Tibbs' mind. Oh, here we go. Brett's coming on the stage as we speak. Add him on in a second. I'm like, you just missed it, man. I'm hoping I think this is a trial for Sims, and I'm hoping for Daniel Gafford. If Sims and or Precious fail their tryouts, I'm hoping for Daniel Gafford. Let's see if I could add Brett. His camera's going on as we speak. Let's get him up here. Let's do that. Let's press that one. Oh, wrong one. Let's do that. There we go. Brett Siegel, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, how's it going? Wow. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm doing good. Your audio took a second. I was like, oh no. Dude, wild things that have been happening in the past 24 to 48 hours. Obviously the banner
issues here.
Adrian Griffin news. Can you just dive into like how that ended up happening? And is Doc Rivers really, after being the guy consulting him, going to be the guy that might take his job?
Yeah, so it's kind of a wild 24 hours for the Bucks, and you can even go back to the weekend of it being a wild ride for the Bucks with the games that they played against the Pistons. They were both pretty close games. Obviously, frustrations have been mounting with the Bucks, and we've seen it throughout the season of where there have been reports coming out of Adrian Griffin losing this locker room and losing the respect of some of the star players, most notably Damian Lillard and Bobby Portis. And then obviously we saw last night Giannis Antetokounmpo on the bench with the clipboard and drawing up plays in the middle of the game. And it just seems like that nothing was going right in terms of personnel with the Bucks and in terms of respect and them wanting Adrian Griffin to coach them other than just being a figurehead on the sideline. So now he's out with them having a 31-10 record. And it seems like Doc Rivers is going to be the replacement there. And all indications point towards it being Doc Rivers' job unless he doesn't want it.
So that's just so because he was already the consultant supposedly for Adrian Griffin. It's been like less than 2 months that like it was a thing they even thought to bring him in. Is there any chance there was like something shady happening behind the scenes, or is this just like we like what he was telling we like what he was telling Griffin, and like Griffin just isn't getting along with these guys, and because you're already the voice that they might be indirectly listening to, we might as well just keep with the continuity of that?
I don't think that Doc Rivers has had that much involvement with the organization and the players. I think that he's just been a consultant for Adrian Griffin since he is a first year head coach and since they know each other. But in terms of knowing the personnel on the Bucks, I don't think it's anything more than him knowing the players from going to battle with them through the years of Doc Rivers being with the Philadelphia 76ers and his past with the Clippers and seeing some of these players through the years. I think obviously he has relationships there, but I don't think that he was hands on at all with this team. And I don't think that he had any say in how things were going this season.
That's so crazy. And I mean, is it like a 100% sure thing, or is there a chance that like Kenny Atkinson gets called up from the Warriors or anyone else they were looking at prior to the season, prior to Griffin, that might be able to swoop in and take this job? Or is this basically Doc's to lose at this point?
It seems like it's Doc Rivers' job. They're already offering him, and at this point, it's whether or not Doc Rivers wants to remain at ESPN or if he wants to go back on the sidelines and be with the Bucks and potentially coach a championship-worthy team there. So I don't really see this being a long, drawn-out process. Probably within the next 24 hours, we'll see the Bucks name Doc Rivers their head coach.
Unbelievable. That's always funny as like when you're a fan of an opposing team and then you see some news and then all of the fans of that team are like kind of rooting for it to happen. Like, yes, hire Doc Rivers, man. He's been great in the playoffs over and over again. He'll definitely help you guys out. So as a Knicks fan, it's just like I've seen a lot of pro hiring of Doc Rivers on my timeline. So it's just really, really funny that now it might be really happening. We got a couple comments real quick. Eric Medell saying Mark Jackson. I don't think Mark Jackson is going to coach again anytime soon. And then Brett. So the other thing I really want to have you on, obviously you are an insider for Clutch Points. I keep hearing Bruce Brown, Malcolm Brogden, those two names mostly from like a Knicks standpoint for the past 48 hours, basically over and over and over again. Can you fill me in on some details about anything you've heard about those two guys or anyone else recently?
Yeah, so they are interested in Bruce Brown, and that dates back to the offseason. The Knicks had interest in signing Bruce Brown as a free agent. He's a CAA client. We've seen plenty of Knicks players represented by CAA, and obviously Leon Rose's ties to that agency. And he just seems like one of those players that would fit in out on the wing and in the backcourt, wherever you really need him. Another utility guy, similar to what Josh Hart already brings to the Knicks, a guy that can pass, a guy that can create, a guy that can knock down threes from the corner, a really good defender in his own right. So I think that's what the Knicks would be getting with Bruce Brown and where that interest comes from. I also believe that they're interested in him because of his contract. He's making $22 million this year, has a team option for $23 million next year. You could easily get him as a rental this season, make a real legit playoff push in the East, try to move up in the standings, and then you could maybe flip Bruce Brown for something else in the offseason because he does have a very movable contract at this point. So I think that's where the interest lies with Bruce Brown, both from a personnel and from a front office standpoint. As far as Brogdon goes, those conversations really haven't gone past other than the Knicks showing interest and just touching base with the Portland Trailblazers. To my knowledge, they haven't discussed any real trade packages. Portland has just been fielding offers at this point from teams and fielding interest of who's going to want Brogdon, where could they potentially move him. Do I expect him to be moved? I do. I think that Brogdon is going to be one of the better players on the move at the trade deadline. But as far as some chatter out there and some rumors that, oh, Brogdon, a deal's almost done going to the Knicks, that's not true at all right now.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good to fill in and clarify. And then we have a couple comments coming in. Teddy, dude, this dude is speaking like I think what a lot of Knick fans are thinking right now. Can we just get Capella and Murray and give them two firsts? Holy crap. We aren't getting Joel Embiid, obviously, as a joke. He commented that from yesterday, but like how is DeJounte Murray not fielding the two first-round picks or a young player and a first-round pick? Not even from the Knicks, but from any team for the Hawks yet.
Right. So the known offer out there right now is from the Lakers for DeJounte Murray. They're really engaged in trade talks with the Hawks for Murray. They've targeted him over the last few weeks. That's a player that they really want. And they see him being a really good backcourt piece next to Austin Reeves and next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And the good thing about Murray is that he's under contract long term. He's only 27, 28 years old. He's a guy that you can pair with Davis for the long term, regardless of if you think LeBron's going to be there next year or not. So I think that given his playmaking abilities and his defensive abilities, I think he'd be a good fit for the Lakers. The offer that's out there is D'Angelo Russell, Jalen Hood Schiaffino, and then a 2029 first-round pick. The the Hawks are looking for a little bit more draft capital there. They want to try to regain some of the lost assets that they gave up to get Murray from the San Antonio Spurs initially. So that's kind of where things have held up there. And they also don't want to take on D'Angelo Russell. That's a big holdup in trade talks with not just the Hawks, but any team that the Lakers have really talked to. Is no one's interested in taking on D'Angelo Russell. It's going to be up to the Lakers to try to find a third team there if they really want to get a deal done and they truly want to move off of D'Angelo Russell. From the Knicks perspective, again, it's one of those situations that they're not actively engaged, similar to Brogdon. They've touched base with the Hawks about DeJounte Murray, and they've talked about a trade package there, but it's really hasn't progressed to the level of they're seriously engaged. Something could get done imminently. That's not the case with DeJounte Murray. They've simply touched in with the Hawks on it. As far as Clint Capella, that's just more of a fit type thing. They don't have Mitchell Robinson right now, and they've shown interest in acquiring another center. Clint Capella is a guy that's on the block. He's a center that has given the Knicks fits at times throughout the course of his career, and he could potentially be a good fit there on a short-term contract. So you bring in another veteran with DeJounte Murray, you send out some salaries, but from the Knicks perspective, both those guys are making $20+ million per year. You'd have to come up with $40 million in salaries to ship out. It would be tough for the Knicks to do, especially after they already went out and got OG Anunoby.
That checks out. And then to go back to the Murray thing, like you said, they want to potentially flip D'Angelo Russell to a third team for ideally more draft capital or a young player and some later round draft capital. And then D'Angelo Russell, like any Knick fan, just if a guy's CAA, we just all know immediately that he's a CAA guy. And obviously D'Angelo Russell is, and he does in essence fit a thing of need right now. We need a backup. They need a backup ball handler. They need a backup point guard. And like, there is a fit there. Is there any chance that the Knicks would be involved in that? And or also what other teams would be looking for D'Angelo Russell as part of that 3-team deal? Who else in the league would want a backup ball handler like that?
So I don't think the Knicks would be a team that's interested in D'Angelo Russell. I don't see that being a good fit next to Jalen Brunson. As far as teams that would potentially be a fit, maybe the Chicago Bulls, but you have Kobe White, who's been playing well, and then you have the question mark of, well, what would the Bulls be giving up? Because they're not going to give up DeMar DeRozan as of right now. They've made it very clear to teams that they're not trading Alex Caruso, and they want to get rid of Zach LaVine and get off his contract, but that's a $40 million contract that no other team in the league is wanting. So now you're going to have to try to find a fourth or a fifth team to get involved in this trade, and then things just start getting way too wild, and then you have to sort out all the financials there. So that's not really a possibility in my mind. One team that does make sense in the East, the Orlando Magic. They're a team that's looking for some guard help. They have Markelle Fultz in the final year of his contract, a team that's on the verge of making it back to the playoffs for the first time in a few years. You have Banchero, you have Wagner. It may make a lot of sense for them to go out and get a guy like D'Angelo Russell, who's been around the block. He's been an all-star before, and he could be a sense of stability for their backcourt and be another secondary scorer for them. So if there is a third team to be involved in a DeJounte Murray trade with the Lakers and the Hawks and D'Angelo Russell's to be on the move, I would pay attention to the Orlando Magic there. I think that could be a pretty interesting fit.
As you're saying different names and teams, it just reminds me of something I've heard in the past couple of weeks, and I want to like bounce to that. And you bring up the Magic and their need for a point guard, even though they technically have like 4 point guards on their roster, just none of them are like real playoff starting caliber point guards. And the Knicks obviously just traded Emmanuel Quickley in the OG Anunoby trade. The 2 teams that were the biggest rumors for the offseason, for next offseason, to take Quickley away from the Knicks if he stayed on the team, and now the Raptors will probably have to deal with from the matching of the RFA, are the Magic and the Spurs. Is there any chance that, from what you've heard, I mean, obviously it's only been a couple of weeks with him in the Raptors, any possibility Emmanuel Quickley is not a Toronto Raptor at the beginning of next year from what you know so far?
There's always a chance, but there really hasn't been much talk yet as far as what the Raptors are going to be looking at free agency. Right now, they're operating with the mindset that everything's on the table still for the trade deadline. And what I mean by that is you still have Bruce Brown's contract that can be traded alone. It can't be aggregated with other salaries since he was just traded, but you can deal Bruce Brown and get some other assets back as kind of like, in quotes, an add-on to that Pascal Siakam trade. And then you still have Gary Trent Jr. in the final year of his contract. You have Chris Boucher, who's likely to be moved at the deadline, another lengthy big man, a good rebounder, and a stretch big man who can play out on the perimeter offensively. So those are 3 names that could be moved. I don't see them moving Jakob Poeltl, although it is still a possibility that if they get a good offer there, they could look to move on from the big man. So I think that's really where Masai Ujiri and this front office are operating right now. As far as free agency goes and what they could potentially do in the summer, that's a whole separate conversation. And it really does depend on what this roster looks like at the end of the year. Because if you still have Bruce Brown on that roster, you're obviously going to enter the offseason looking to make a deal with his contract. If you still have Gary Trent Jr., he's going to be a free agent. What do you decide to do there? Is that a sign and trade opportunity? Do you look to extend him on a short-term deal? And then obviously Quickley as a restricted free agent. So the Raptors do have some decisions to make as far as free agency goes, though. That's down the line for them. They're not even thinking about that yet.
God, no offense to Jonte Porter, man, but if they deal Jakob Poeltl, they don't have a center. Just straight up, they don't have an NBA caliber center, so that's pretty crazy. Because the Knicks, you mentioned it with Capella too, and the only actual other big I've heard from like a Knicks trade rumor standpoint has been Daniel Gafford. Obviously the Wizards are still like one of the worst 3 teams in the league. Everyone's on the market for the Wizards. So outside Gafford, anyone else like available or would be looking for from New York? If you'd heard anything on that front?
Yeah, so Gafford, definitely a possibility. I think that's a smaller contract that the Knicks could go after. And even when Mitchell Robinson's healthy, he could be a potential plug and play guy for them. And we've seen him be able to come off the bench before for the Wizards and make an impact. So I definitely think that Gafford would be an option for them. You still have Clint Capella on the block as a big man available. You have Chris Boucher as a guy that's available in Toronto. But other than that, there's not many centers that have really hit the trade block this year. It's pretty much guards and wings that are available at this point. And as far as centers go, we've seen it in today's league where you don't need a true 6'10, 6'11 bruiser in the paint to be successful. You can have some of these guys that are 6'8, 6'9, can stretch the floor, play out on the perimeter, and they're generally like a small forward or power forward, but they're playing the 5 and playing the center position. So I think that's mainly what teams are looking for. They're looking for length, they're looking for athleticism, and especially on the defensive end of the floor, that's what they're looking for at this point on the trade deadline.
And then to the Wizards' point, Kyle Kuzma, Tyus Jones, anyone else still being available or like looking to be traded? Or what are they trying to get for those guys if they make any more moves?
They want draft assets. The Wizards, we can pretty much call them the Oklahoma City Thunder of the Eastern Conference. They're looking to pull a page out of Sam Presti's book, gather a bunch of draft assets, and that makes sense, seeing as their GM came from Oklahoma City and he learned from the best over there. So if you get a lot of draft assets, you give yourself options moving forward. You don't have to keep all those picks. You can then flip them for guys down the line. And if a superstar becomes available, maybe 3 first-round picks gets a deal done in 2025 or 2026. So that's really where the Wizards are operating right now. Everybody on their roster, other than Bilal Coulibaly, is available for a trade. They would like to keep Tyus Jones. Based on certain reports, I believe it was Michael Scotto from Hoopsite was talking about how they'd like to keep Jones and extend him. And then you also have Kyle Kuzma, who's a player that they don't really want to give up unless they're getting a haul back in return. And we're talking a minimum of 2 first-round picks there. And it's not just end of the first round. They want high-end, valuable first-round picks for Kyle Kuzma. So in terms of them dealing any of those guys, Tyus Jones is the player that's generating the most interest on the trade market, seeing as he's on an expiring deal. I believe it's around $13 or $14 million, an accessible contract for many playoff contending teams around this league. And we've seen what he can do behind John Morant through the years as a 6-man coming off the bench. So I do think that he's a very valuable commodity that could help many playoff teams in this league. As far as Kuzma goes, a much significantly larger contract of $25 million this season. And it's only going to go up from there. And his value is very high right now from the Wizards' point of view. So I wouldn't expect them to deal Kuzma at this time unless they get a really good offer that they can't turn out.
That checks out. I'm assuming it would have to be like 3 first-round picks or something pretty crazy for them to want to be blown away. And just real quick on Tyus, what are they looking for? Like an unprotected first-rounder plus like the salary, or would it be more than that, less than that?
They want at least 1 first-round pick for Tyus Jones. It's probably going to wind up taking 1 first-round pick and maybe a low-end protected first-round pick or an early second-round pick at best, 2 second-round picks even. They want draft assets and they want to capitalize on their value. Tyus Jones is a player that they like, much like Kuzma. They're not just going to give him up for anything. Yeah, he's in the final year of his contract and he could potentially leave, but they feel confident in their ability to keep him long-term. They want to extend him and they want him to be one of the faces of the franchise and lead their backcourt. So if you're Tyus Jones, you have to look at this as you're having a career year with the Wizards. Yeah, it's not the best team, but they can offer you money. They can offer you stability at that point guard position. And compared to any other team in the league, he's probably going to be a six man for them, whereas he'd be a starter with the Wizards. So I would expect that if they get rid of him and he's traded at the deadline, it's probably going to be a couple picks as well as a talented young player.
Word up. And then again, for everyone on Instagram, make sure you come over to YouTube. Can't really see your comments over there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Check out our merch that way. BigNickEnergy.com. We have 50% off sale till the end of the night. Teddy has a couple more questions, which this one's really what every Knicks fan is just thinking about overall. Like, if you were to pick, do the Knicks make another move before the deadline? Yes or no? What do you think is more likely?
I would say yes. This was a team that traded for OG Anunoby. They got rid of RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley in what was the season's first big move other than the James Harden trade, which was very early on. So they got Anunoby. They've been successful. They're right on the verge of being the 4 seed, potentially even moving up to the 3 or 2 seed in the East. And they're a very talented team. You look at their roster up and down. They have Jalen Brunson, who's going to be a first-time All-Star this year. Julius Randle could potentially get back into the All-Star game. And then Dante DiVincenzo's played really well. And Anobi's played well since coming over. And then that front court, Isaiah Hartenstein has really stepped up in the absence of Mitchell Robinson going down with his foot/ankle injury. So you have pieces there to make a legit playoff push. And we saw what the Knicks could do last season. They looked impressive in the playoffs, and this is a gritty team. Tom Thibodeau has them playing at a high level. I would expect them to make another move at this point. They have the draft assets to do so. They have Evan Fournier's contract, which can be moved, and a team can easily free up cap space by letting him go in the offseason with his team option. And then Quentin Grimes, they're actively shopping him. They have multiple suitors for Grimes. There's various teams in both conferences that have checked in with the Knicks regarding Grimes. So I think that there's moves to be had if you're the Knicks, and I would expect them to make another pretty substantial upgrade to this roster. Maybe not a player like OG Anunoby, who's making close to 20 million, but I would think that a
That would
player
be
in
nice to
that
get another OG upgrade.
another player in that 15 to 20 million dollar range is definitely a possibility for this team.
Gotcha. I mean, the Evan Fournier contract has just been dangling to be dealt for the past 2 years. So I'm hoping sooner or later it actually happens. James is a really good question from Twitter. How active do you think the Knicks will be in the buyout market considering their tax apron?
It's going to be an interesting buyout market for sure, simply because now you have Kyle Lowry, who could potentially be a buyout candidate after being traded to the Hornets. You have Gordon Hayward from the Hornets, who could be a buyout candidate. You look at Toronto, what will they potentially do with some of their guys? If they don't trade Gary Trent, I would doubt that they would buy him out. But maybe a guy like Chris Boucher, will he be a buyout candidate? Andre Drummond with the Chicago Bulls. So there's a lot of different veteran names out there that could help a lot of teams around the league. If you're the Knicks, I definitely think that they'll consider looking at some of those guys on the open market, especially if a guy like Gordon Hayward hits the open market and he's available as a free agent. And he's not necessarily a defensive option like OG Anunoby or Josh Hart or some of those other guys the Knicks have on the wing. But Gordon Hayward is a really good scorer when he's healthy, and he could help many teams around this league right now. We've seen it with the Hornets this season when he's healthy. He's been an X factor for them. So he's definitely a name that many front offices around the league are keeping an eye on right now.
Hayward would definitely solve the need for a backup ball handler that the Knicks have. I mean, like you said, a lot of teams. He would solve that for a lot of teams, obviously. Brett, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's really, really appreciated. If you want, you get to answer one last question. What is the holdup on Brogdon? Like, just in general, why do you think there's no talks about him actually being moved versus where it was at last week? And then if you want to plug anything, I'll let you go.
Yeah, so there are talks of him being moved. Teams have checked in with the Blazers. The Knicks are one of them. They've talked with the Blazers about Brogdon and seeing what the value and the price tag is set on Brogdon at this point. It ultimately comes down to if the Blazers want to move him ahead of the deadline, which I believe they do, and it comes down to how much value that they want to move him for. And they could try to create a bidding war here. And you look at what's happened with the Hawks with DeJounte Murray. I think that holds a lot of weight on what happens in the point guard market and some of these guards that are available, like Tyus Jones, like Malcolm Brogdon. Because if DeJounte Murray winds up going to the Lakers, is there going to be another team in the West that then looks to try to get Brogdon and they're going to be willing to offer more? Could that impact the East with DeJounte Murray going out from the Hawks? Will a team now take that opportunity to go out and get a guy like Tyus Jones or Malcolm Brogdon? So I wouldn't say that there's a holdup, but we still got 2 weeks till the deadline. There's going to be a lot of talk going around the league. There's going to be a lot of rumors out there. And quite honestly, there's a lot of time between now and the trade deadline for anything to happen. So it could really go down to the final hour leading up to the deadline of if Brogdon gets moved and for how much.
Word up, Brett. Thank you again, man. Thanks for coming on. If I got one thing out of all of this, it's that you mentioned Gordon Hayward being a buyout candidate. If the Knicks don't trade for anyone, that is now my new favorite person to hopefully get. So thanks for coming on, man. What's your Twitter handle just for everyone to know?
Sure, it's at Brett Siegel NBA. It's Siegel. You can also find all my content on ClutchPoints. Our handle there is at ClutchPoints. It's easy as that. So, yeah, you can find all of our content there, and we're heading into a big season with the trade market. So, plenty of rumors every single day.
Brett, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for everyone tuning in, by the way. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Apple Pod, Spotify, and all that good stuff when I put this up. Let's go Knicks. The tip-off is about to happen, and I'm going to get out of here and watch the game. So let's get some better players. Precious and Jericho, this is your time to shine, baby. Peace. I'm going to press end.